Reading a book with the principles to empower you to become a stronger and more equipped thought leader that really can share your message in the world out there with the power that it deserves. Well, it can be a bit of a toss-up. Sometimes we invest our time in books that share really valuable principles and information that can take us further. And sometimes we enjoy a good story, the biography or autobiography of a real-life person who's done what we hope to do and that we hope to build on in the future. But every now and again, a book comes along that combines both of these wonderful qualities, the information that we desire and the tools that we really want to take further inside a really good showstopper of a page turner of a story. And one of those books is Belonging by Alison Jessica Weihe. In this short video, I'd like to share with you why this book is so well worth having on your bookshelf in physical format. It's a really remarkable book that not only tells a great story, but that leads to principles that you can use, principles that have been proven to empower and that are really shaking up the world. If you're new here, welcome to Yazi Media Virtual Media House. This YouTube channel is all about empowering experts, entrepreneurs, and enthusiasts to share their visionary message with the world in ways that generate not only the impact that you desire, but also the profits that you deserve. So let's dive into Belonging by Alison Jessica Weihe. This subtitle is Finding Tribes of Meaning. And I love the way that this really tells the story of the book. Now, something you should know about Alison, and this is why I think this book is a work of art, is if you've ever seen her on stage, you will know what artistry she brings to the work that she does. Alison has now started to describe herself as a writer who speaks. And she says a great deal inside the book of what writing actually has done for her. She writes very openly and candidly about the process of putting this book together. And if you're thinking of ever writing your own book, that's definitely something to pay attention to because this book is the fruit of many, many years of not just hard-earned life experience, but a first edition of the book that began to tell her story. But this second edition of the book actually strips back even more layers and she shares it with such authenticity. Everything that she had been through, everything that has taken her to develop the philosophy that she refers to as the, hold on, ta-dam, drum roll, identity intelligence. And what she says about identity intelligence is this. In my journey of transformation, I have found that what I call identity intelligence is the most powerful catalyst for transformation. Now, remember, that's coming from an award-winning entrepreneur. Identity is what defines the essence of our being. It prescribes what we become committed to. Now, as we know, the things we become committed to are the things that begin to become realities in the world out there. So, something to know about Alison is that before writing this book and even its first incarnation, and before becoming a speaker on global stages, she was an entrepreneur. And before that, she was an activist. If you're not familiar with the South African political scenario in, well, most of the 20th century, you may have heard of apartheid and the idea of segregating different population groups. And Alison was one of many, many activists who began to unravel this. And she used her very special position as an activist who did have a voice coming from the white community to actually spread the word and stand up for what she believes in. In the book, she often refers to an experience that she had using this experience as a bit of a metaphor that weaves throughout the book. And that's something she does very beautifully, is weaving together these threads of her stories with the lessons and also the internal and external themes of the book, as well as other works of art, works of literature, and principles, and the work of other thought leaders throughout the world. She tells the story of how, as a student at Stellenbosch, at the time, a very conservative Afrikaner white university, how she would actually be sure that she would get on the bus that was actually not allocated for white people. Now, that was a small act of rebellion that you might think rings an echo of the famous Rosa Parks story in the States. But with a reversal of roles, she could do something that not many people were in a position to do, and even fewer had the courage to do. And that was to essentially break the law to make the statement that we are all equal in a country where it was literally illegal to take it that far. And her activism work created this foundation for so much of what she did. And yet, in the background of all of this, she opens the book with an experience of hers where she was contemplating taking the most catastrophic actions imaginable because she didn't believe in herself and because she had such a burden of shame upon her. And this burden begins to introduce us to what Alison calls throughout the book the knot of knots. That's the KNOT of NOTS, the knot of knots. And that knot of knots is about all the things that we, the voices in our head or society, tell us are not possible. And Alison's journey through unraveling that knot of knots is one of incredible courage and one that explains also how each step along her own journey began to equip her for the next and the great steps that she is taking today in stirring and moving and empowering people around the world. But following on her activism, she moved into entrepreneurship. And for those of us who express our message through our business or even our career, but especially through that magical activity of entrepreneurship, where we bring something into life that was not there before and generate an economic reality around it that can serve and empower people. This is an incredible story because not only did she go on to become an award-winning entrepreneur, a multiple award-winning entrepreneur, but she also empowered many, many people through the work that she did in entrepreneurship. And that had nothing to do with the personal development type work that she does today. In fact, the company that she started with her husband, Friedel, was called Creative Stone, and they actually create exquisite spaces. And so it's a very hands-on material world, nuts and bolts business. And in that business, Alison experienced both the building, the courage, the courageous statement of delivering only the very, very best, of far exceeding clients' expectations. And how people said that would be impossible. There's no way you can put that much into serving one client. And yet the results speak for themselves. But as this business began to reach a height of its success, she discovered a deep deep betrayal in the business that would derail their activities and lead to a traumatic legal encounter that she had to work through and live through. So, against the backdrop of all of this, there's this personal development taking place, entrepreneurial development taking place, and then, of course, the external business in the outside world that went through all these the growth process, this calamity, and then rebuilding to where it is once again a remarkable success story today. But alongside all of that, Alison's knot of knots, beginning with a life of insecurity, of not being able to find her own voice, even as recently as just a few years ago, to stepping out onto the stages, physically out there in the world, but also onto a global stage to share a really important visionary message. Her identity principles are ones that can empower anybody. And this book actually walks you through the whole process. There's poetry and beauty in this book, and I love the way that it's not just the cover art that is exquisite or the wonderful photographs, stories of Alison's life that we find at the back of the book as she shares all her experiences in photographs, but also the art of a sculptor who is acknowledged here through an incredible piece of work, the Dark Codex, and all the symbolism around this, as well as additional artwork that prefaces every chapter. And this is from the artist Hester Reeve. From the Department of Art and Design at Sheffield Hallam University. And in addition to that, these beautiful snippets of poetry, even from the book's editor and from Alison herself, and other contributions that people have brought into this. So there's this exquisite weaving together of this rich intertextual material. Alison introduces those readers who may not be familiar with some of her own mentors, like Joe Dispenza and Marisa Peer, to the richness that they bring to the world. Something else that she manages to do is to work through this theme. I'm sure you've noticed the butterfly on the cover. And this butterfly is actually honored throughout Alison's own journey and the way that she speaks of it throughout the book. She begins with her first chapter, peering into my soul, and then moves on into her cocoon years, her hatching, caterpillar time, and ultimately this butterfly phase of becoming extraordinary. And everything that surrounds her journey and the lessons that come from this. Something else that Alison does to an extent that I've rarely seen done is that her acknowledgements span not just one page, they span several pages where she acknowledges the tribes of meaning that she discusses here, the way that different communities have supported her over time, including the Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa, the PSASA, that led me to discover Alison's work, and the individuals who've made a contribution to her. And I think that is one that any author can put out there as hashtag goals. Can we acknowledge the people who are part of our stories? I would recommend Alison Jessica Weihe's book, Belonging, Finding Tribes of Meaning, to any thought leader, any aspiring thought leader, and anybody who wants to grow, whether that is at a personal level, a political or social level as an activist, an entrepreneurial level, but most importantly, as a human being who is fulfilling our potential doing our part in the world to which we belong. This book is a page turner, and very often when I'm sucked into a page turner, I will very easily just flip through it on a reading app, and I love Kindle for that. But this is the kind of book that is worth having on the shelf, referring back to flipping through all these beautiful pictures. It really is a work of art, and that is a quality that Alison also brings to this book. Now, I'm also going to link you in the description to this video to Alison's own interview with Kim Vermaak of the Write, Learn and Earn channel here on YouTube. Alison and Kim have worked together in making this book an absolutely riveting reality. I was lucky enough to be at the book launch in Johannesburg, and it was not just the glamour that we've come to expect from book launches at that level, because there was a ton of the glamour, but there was a soul and a spirit to that event. The number of times that I sat with chills, goosebumps, and tears in my eyes throughout that process, Alison telling her story, bringing in guests who have been part of her journey, was just absolutely phenomenal. And as far as Alison being a writer who speaks is concerned, I hear a lot of presentations, a whole lot. And it's pretty difficult to impress me. The bar for me is so high. I hear so many great speakers speak, and I'm still critical. And very often I ask myself, what is even the point of going on stage to make a presentation anymore? But I recently heard Alison speak about the art of speaking. She literally created the metaphor of sculpting a keynote. And something that she does so masterfully is building that pattern. So just as she has this butterfly theme of transformation and metamorphosis running through the book of belonging, in her keynotes, you'll discover that she works with a theme and fully exploits and optimizes it so that there's not just the obvious layer of meaning that we're looking for in a presentation. There's something far richer than that, and that is this artistry surrounding all that she does. If you ever have the chance to be in her physical presence on stage, if you have a chance to book a galvanizing world-class speaker, take it. But if you don't have that right now, go and get this book on your shelf. It is one that sets the trend, sets an example, creates a whole next level mold for any thought leader and anyone who aspires to go and make that dent in the world, to do what they are here to do. That's Alison Jessica Weihe's Belonging, Finding Tribes of Meaning. If you've enjoyed this video, well, go and get the book. But if you're still here, remember to like this video, subscribe, and please let me know in the comments what are the books that you would like to see reviewed here. If you're an author, let me know if your book is one that deserves the showcase, that it can be a book for thought leaders. And most of all, get out there in the world and share your visionary message.